Hello and welcome, Dangerlings, to another dangerous Wednesday here in the UK. It's a little bit wet and cold, but we're nice and warm by the fires of Pathfinder. And so today it's, of course, as your host, as usual, James Foxy Lockhart, and we have just Dungeon Master on today. I say just, of course, he is a colossus in the gaming world. Dan, hello.
Hello, I'm trying to sit like a newsreader and look all professional for this because I never know what to do with myself at the start of the stream when you're doing the intro. I'm
Well,
trying to sit all professional, but
I mean,
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here in front of the glyph of the open road, which may become relevant.
the glyph of the open road. There we are, emblazoned upon bikers and truckers everywhere. That is the glyph of the open world. I'm looking forward to finding out more about that. And how are you doing? Are you well?
I'm good. We had a record day yesterday, which went very well. It feels weird telling. I know this is the illusion of radio, but it feels weird telling you this because you were there as well. But we had a record day yesterday. We put in four new episodes of the Danger Club podcast. We put down several episodes of Danger Recall. That show is fantastic. Colin has done an amazing job on it. And
He's
so
so proud.
A whole load of stuff on there. We covered so much of a load of Murders Mark already to come out weekly. So that's recorded up for several weeks now. And we got to do our first bits of Patreon content in the Danger Club. We got some of our NPCs popped up in the show. So if you're listening to episodes over the next few weeks, you will hear NPCs named by the Dangerlings, which is incredibly exciting. We had a lot of fun with them.
It is very exciting indeed. Hello, Rogvigurg. Hello, Amy. Nice to see you. Yes, Dan's connection was a little bit sketchy at the beginning there, but it seems to have leveled out now, so that's fine. Yes, and we can promise you that Ross definitely didn't get confused and get the wrong name wrongs again. Definitely not. That will come as no surprise to anyone. That's not a spoiler. It's just that Ross is terrible with names. But yeah, I hope you're doing well out there, Dangerlings. We're really excited about the show we've got here today with the mysterious glyph that is emblazoned. I don't know what that glyph means. Something to do with the open road. And yeah, generally, it was a really, really good session yesterday, I thought. Very, very nice. I didn't give any spoilers away in the my Fighting Fantasy live stream I did on yesterday, so all remains a mystery.
Yeah, how did that go? Because you had to race, like we overran on recording, didn't we? And so you had to race back to Death Trap Dungeon at the speed.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of my own fault, but I was so excited about doing Death Trap Dungeon. I really wanted to do it, and I'd foolishly plugged it already. So I found out that on social media, you can't really there's no take backsies. No. Once it's out there, it's like, oh, I've committed. But it was great. It was really, really good fun. Death Trap Dungeon is one of the most beloved. And of course, Tickle Pink that Ian Livingstone actually answered. Well, he liked one of my tweets about it. So he did. I told you that. The record. Do you remember? Yeah. So 3 people liked my tweet of me lying in a sleeping bag with fake teeth and ham hanging out of my mouth. And Ian Livingstone himself was one of them. So I was delighted about that.
My goodness, what must he have made of that?
I don't know. He's probably wondering what on earth has become of the world. But still, he's a lovely, lovely man. As I've babbled on.
I'm still reeling from the revelation that there are 2 Steve Jacksons.
Yeah,
something we discovered just the other week. Having lived my whole life thinking that there was one Steve Jackson who did Fighting Fantasy, Games Workshop, GURPS. Steve Jackson games, all of the, this Titan, and it turns out it's still a Titan, but it's 2 Titans. There's an American one who did all of that. Who does Steve Jackson games.
It really is. It really is. And thanks to our friend Lee, we also not only discovered that bombshell, but also that, just to confuse matters, Steve Jackson, the British one, had used the American one to do things for him as well. So Steve Jackson has done Steve Jackson doing under a Steve Jackson project for Steve Jackson. So really confusing. Just going to stop things for a moment there because Candice has joined us, and I think I'd like to join everyone in saying congratulations, Candice.
Absolutely.
Tremendous. For those of you who do not know, Candice got married yesterday, so well done. Mwah, you looked amazing with your fiery jet pink hair and wonderful dress. I hope you had a marvellous day. Thanks for coming and joining us.
Jet pink hair?
I don't know. I said that on my stream earlier. Is jet pink? Jet pink.
love a pink jet. That would be
Yeah,
smart.
jet pink and hot black was Chris's comment. I was like, yeah, let's go with that, hot black. That's basically my fashion. So yeah, I think without further ado, we have Candice, we have Amy and Rodvig, and possibly other people out there. Do, of course, it's worth mentioning, do give us a follow if you haven't already, because you will get alerts about this coming up and available so to watch again. So should we move on to news?
Let's do some news. I'm excited about this one.
Do
It's been a
some
Danger
news.
wedding. There's been a lot of love on the Discord this week. We've got recordings done. I'm in a good mood. Let's do some news.
Let's do some news. So I shall do the sting to go on. Danger Club news.
So aggressive. I love it.
It is. Well, it's that sort of like late 80s. It's the news. You got to watch it. Damn it. So what first item of news do we have?
We've got one item of news. I mean, there's sort of two items of news, but we're going to spend most of the show talking about the second one because we're going to be doing a review on here.
Yes, we
There's
are.
a lot of new stuff out, and Paizo very kindly sent us the October releases, so we have a lot of stuff that we could review. We've got one coming up later, but there is some non-review related news, and that is the second part of the Starfinder Alexa adventure. That came out, I think, yesterday. So that is available now. And that's the one with Nathan Fillion and Laura Bailey in it. So if you have if you are playing through, it's like we've talked about the Starfinder Alexa thing a couple of times, I think.
We did. And it's
sort of like an interactive, it's part game, part interactive story. So it's like a choose your own adventure, but you play it by talking to Alexa, and if it's anything like my Alexa, then it just ignored you.
Fun with Bezos.
Yeah, it is not very good, but this one has an amazing voice cast. So I'm up for playing it. I think it'll be quite good.
Yeah,
they do. I don't know how much they cost. You do have to buy them. There is a preview one that you can buy. That you can get for free, so you can play a little bit of it. But the other ones that they don't cost very much, and apparently if you buy the Starfinder Beginners box, you get the first one for free, so you can try it. You can try it out. But yeah, it's a new way, especially if you're stuck indoors, which a lot of us are at the moment. That's it's a new way of playing games. It's a new way of doing a story, and it's Laura Bailey and Nathan Fillion, so it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and it's very much in the vein of as coming full circle, the sort of fighting fantasy books and that kind of being able to game without a party. So I said that just as you took a big drink.
It is. It's in that game, and it is in that vein, and it's that kind of classic adventure story, which I confess I haven't tried it because it's kind of the Amazon Echo sort of sitting in the living room, and it's just not somewhere I normally play those kind of games, so I haven't given it a go. And I have no money to buy one, and although we've been given many review copies, we've not been given a review copy of that, which is why we haven't really done a review of it yet.
Fair enough. In another news flash, I didn't realise that our very own Rogvagurg is actually called Greg.
Hey, Greg.
And it came from Rogvagreg, which is the evil version of Greg. So there we go. Newsflash. If you wish, we can call you. I mean, I think for Rogvagurg, I mean, I just always think of the big spider god, who's also very keen on rules. So that's kind of become your moniker. You are one.
Which is ironic for like the god of chaos and destruction.
Yeah, it's just like, but you got to follow the rules. Chaos and destruction has rules, and you need to adhere to them. But no, we love you, man. So there we go. News.
So that is kind of all of the news that we have.
No news.
Well, that's kind of all we have in terms of stuff that is new.
Yes.
Stuff that I was
not...
be happy they emailed that through just before we started.
All we've got that's new, because we do, you might have noticed on your screen and on the beginning loading screen, a fancy new Dangerous Wednesdays logo done by our very own Ross Harmston. So thanks, Ross. There it is. I'm going to point to it over there. Look at that. That's really cool, right?
Look around the screen because I don't know where I am.
It's above you. It is above you. Oh, yes. Very good. That was very good, Dan. Very good. That was like early 90s CG kind of acting. That was excellent.
I'm on nightmare.
Yeah, it was very much that. Thank you for that. As you can see, my love of all things synthwave and retro is gradually taking over everything. I didn't even ask for that. It was just kind of like, well, it's going to be like a retro synthwave thing. It's like, Great. I do not argue with that. But thank you, Ross.
I love the
Excellent work.
style.
I hope you.
It's got the show's got a new theme as well. You won't hear it on the live stream version just yet because we
Yeah.
haven't got the new like opening credits ready for the live stream version. But it will be on the audio version that will come out on Patreon tomorrow morning. That has the new theme on it, and Colin did it, and it's really good.
It's really good, really good. An original composition. So look forward to that. And with regards to the inspiration, Robert Girk, basically the 80s. Is the inspiration, I guess, or the 80s that should have been. So yeah, that's a bit of exciting news. So we've got some improvements going on across the board. Do you have any news, by the way, Dangerlings? You can always chip in if there's something exciting that's caught your eye in the gaming world or something that you want to raise. We're happy to, of course, have this as a two-way thing. It's not just listening to me and Dan and whoever else wants to come along talk. You also can talk as well.
Yeah, please do. Because that's kind of how this live stream started, was just me trying not to go insane during lockdown and just just having like these weekly streams on Facebook Live so that I could talk to people. So please do talk to us. Tell us how your week's gone. Tell us how your games are going.
Yeah,
because there's some exciting stuff, exciting games.
Indeed. And Greg says he likes the recall theme as a distortion of the original Danger Club theme. Yes, indeed, indeed. Of course, you have watched it. That's excellent. I'm glad you're liking it. So I suppose the sort of the symbol in the room that we're not talking about is this sort of weird thing of the open world that's behind you, the glyph of the open road. Sorry.
Open world, yes, the open road. Glyph of the open road. I don't know why I'm acting like I can't believe you don't know what the glyph of the open road is.
Oh my goodness!
No.
Actually, just before that, we do have some news in the Dangerlings. One more Dangerling has joined Club. And
yes!
And Amy might be another. Great. We're so glad that Club is going from strength to strength. That's fantastic news.
Go Club.
Yeah, can't tell you how much, role playing. I know we babble on about it all the time, but it really is, it does bring people together and stop you from going mad, which of course this year is almost determined to try and do to us. But we stay strong and we stay together. So excellent. Very, very glad. That is excellent news. Club. Everyone's just saying Club now. So great. So Dan, this glyph of the open road.
In the spirit of cooperating and indeed exploring, reporting and cooperating, this week we are going to be talking about the Pathfinder Society. And that is why behind me, this is the glyph of the open road. Let me show you properly.
Nice. Look at that.
Yeah.
I have tried to keep as much as I can in the video, but you can see it with this weird sort of like a sort of like a late 90s tribal man tattoo.
It is, isn't it? So it represents two roads going off in different directions, off to adventure. That's what the open road is. That's what
right.
Two lines going off are. But what it is the emblem of the Pathfinder Society, group that I know, James, you are very familiar with recently in the Danger Club. Without talking about what's going on at the moment, I've been told very firmly I'm not talking about spoilers for the Danger Club on this one. That's why I want to go on Danger Recall all the time, so I can just give lists of people who are dead and things that have happened. But nonetheless, the Pathfinder Society have appeared in the story recently, as they have throughout our story, as they do in most Pathfinder games. And they are getting their own book this month. And their book it's a book in the Lost Omens line. And it's called Lost Omens, Lost Omens Pathfinder Society Guide, as you might suspect. So it's pretty self-explanatory. And it's one that I was weirdly excited about. And it's one that I wasn't excited about back when it was announced.
You get weirdly excited about all of them.
Well, this is the thing, is it all flipped a little bit when Lost Omens Legends came out, which we talked about a little while ago back at Gen Con when it was released, because that was the first thing that the Lost Omens line is absolutely my jam. That is my kind of book. It's where all the lore is. It's where all the world, all the stuff about the world is. And I will just hoover all of that up because I just want to know about Galarian and put it all into games and things. So they're my books. And then Lost Omens Legends got announced, and I was like, that doesn't sound like something that I'll be super into. And then lo and behold, it came out, and it was probably my favorite RPG book of the year. It was a really good book, and just so well written, and so much stuff about the world told in really unique ways. And that made me kind of think a bit differently about the Pathfinder Society guide that was coming up, because I I play a bit of PFS, usually at conventions, usually with Dangerlings, and I play it for a bit, and I sort of understand it, but I've never like dove into it so much that I understand it really well. And the Pathfinder Society have always been slightly tangential to a lot of the games that I've run, because I've never done, because most of their lore is tied up in PFS and organized play, because that's where all their adventures are. So unless you play a lot of it, you don't necessarily know much about the organization that the entire game is named after. So I was kind of like, oh, am I really going to care that much about the Pathfinder Society? And then this came out. I was like, okay, the rules are completely off on Lost Omens now. Like anything can be good. So let's give it a chance. So I got as soon as the review copy came through, I sat this morning. I got up very early this morning, and I started reading the book. I was awake anyway. I couldn't sleep.
Okay.
I wanted to read it.
So, well, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pause you there, because I know what you're like, and you're just going to blurb everything out
I
in funny
will.
order. So, what were your first impressions upon sort of having a scan and reading the book? We're going to do this in structured order.
I like this. This is good. This is what I need in my life.
Yeah, well, yes, yeah. I could just. You're going to start at the end. You're going to tell us how you like the book. It's like, no. So, what was your first impression? So, for anyone, let's say that one of the Dangerlings has downloaded it or bought it. What are the first things they're going to find? What leaps out?
You are going to find a book that is very similar to Lost Omens Legends in the ratio of lore to rules. Fluff to crunch, is it? I never know.
One of those things. So you've got all those sort of like tales from Galarian, and then you've got hardcore the rules of the game sort of thing.
Exactly. If you imagine sort of at one end of the pool, you've got like your game mastery guide and your advanced players guide and the core rule book, and they're rules. And then at the other end, you've got sort of lighter touch stuff like Lost Omens Legends and this. And in the middle, you've got things probably like the Lost Omens character guide is quite a lot like that. And actually the world guide is to an extent, because the world guide is full of lore because it's about the world, but there are lots of rules in every chapter. And that's kind of what Lost Omens books do, is there's not a section that is just the rules and then a section that is the lore. The rules bits are sprinkled throughout the book where it makes sense for the thing. So it reads much more easily as a sort of a page turner rather than necessarily as just a reference book.
Okay.
So you're going to find a lot of stuff about the Pathfinder Society.
Is it big? What sort of size are we talking about?
It's 130 pages.
Okay.
So it's a decent size. So it's going to be one of those. The Lost Omens books are they look very slim when you put them on the shelf next to your core rule book and your bestiaries and things, but they're still chunky books, and that's kind of because Paizo moved from basically doing monthly gazetteers where they had put out a sort of a softback, a paperback lore thing every month, to now doing these hardbacks which come out less frequently, but their actual page count across the year is higher, so they actually put out more content. But I think it's more cost effective to do it as hardbacks, and they look lovely on a shelf, so you can have a whole load of. I'm gradually buying up, even though we get the PDFs, I'm gradually buying up the Lost Omens books when I can justify a little bit of money, because they look really nice on the shelf.
I mean, I think there's probably no, I wouldn't go far as to say cynical, but obviously they have got a mind to, a lot of GMs and a lot of players like to collect books. They look great. I mean, all you got to do, I know we've got the open world glyph behind you, the open road, sorry, not open world, but your books are great. Who doesn't like that?
And this one's fun. You would like the cover on this book. It's got a very kind of classic movie cover. We've got a Pathfinder agent, an elf, sort of holding up. It's got all the tropes that you want from something. So she's holding a glowing sword that looks very much like Sting. That kind of thing. It's glowing blue.
What, Sting the artist?
Creeping in from behind. So and then she's sort of reaching as if to take some chalice on a pedestal like it's Indiana Jones. It's like, cool, this is the book about raiding tombs and action archaeology.
Okay.
That's the stuff you want from that.
So you've heard it here first. Dan has assured us that the cover has an elf holding the artist known as Sting with Indiana Jones in the background touching a chalice. So good. There we are. No, Sting the wrestler. Rugvigo says. Greg, I should say as well. Um, yeah, exactly. Don't stand so close to me, Sword. Says Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Welcome. So it sounds like we've got some pretty. Yeah, I always think Sting from Dune, Amy. So we've got. So it looks pretty. It's fairly decent size. So opening it, how does it? How was it? How was the feel?
Okay, so I went through it, and it's got. I'd say straight away, first impressions. This book falls into. It's at the higher end of what you want in terms of how much lore you want. If you play a lot of PFS, then this book will have a lot for you. If you are somebody who is really into the lore, or if you GM a lot, especially if you GM a game that travels around, you will find a lot in here that you like. If you're a casual player, there are some rules in here that are nice, but to be honest, they'll be on Archives of Nethys.
Right.
So maybe you don't need to put your money down for it on that, but there is some stuff in it that I really, really like. Do you want to go through the book sort of chapter by chapter, or how do you want to dive through?
I think, I mean, depending on how long it is, it's up to you. I mean, you've read the book. We can do that, and certainly maybe the things you liked, sort of a summary, a brief summary of what it was, and things that jumped out.
I'll talk about the stuff I like most, and we'll sort of skip over some of the wordier bits.
Well, if there's anything you didn't like, we can leave that till the end, because I think it'd be quite nice to talk about the positives, talk about the good things, and then talk about the things that perhaps weren't so good or that you'd like fleshed on, and so on, so on. Ooh. So the good things. Let's look at the good things.
Right at the start of the book, you get a load of backgrounds. That's become a standard thing now for basically any book that comes out. They will give you a load of extra backgrounds for it. Backgrounds are the thing that there's kind of no limits on how many of them their writers are allowed to throw into the game. There are deliberate limits on complexity in a lot of areas of it. That's why you get feats, but the feats are sort of siloed into particular classes, or so it doesn't just overwhelm the general feat pool like first edition did. But backgrounds, you can just have loads and loads of backgrounds, and I like that because they're really easy to understand. It's not like with feats where you give someone a feat list 100 items long and it's just overwhelming, confusing, and none of the words make sense. Backgrounds are easier. You can just say, what did your character do before they became an adventurer? Pick from this list. Yeah. And I like that.
I think that no, not at all. I was just going to say that the feat list from PF1 still brings me out in a cold sweat. But I think the backgrounds are really quite nice because you can take as much or as little of them as you want. They can be just a signpost, or they do actually go quite deep and be like, this is literally your backstory.
And they're mechanically very simple. If all you want to do is do something that gives you the stats you want for your build, you just pick one that gives you the abilities that you want, because they give you a skill feat. Most skill feats are fine. They're not going to make or break your character based on what they are. Sometimes they're useful, but you don't really have to worry too much about picking the exact skill feat that you need. But there are some really nice ones in here, and it was the same when we reviewed the Advanced Player's Guide. There was some there. You're like, oh, I'm surprised that wasn't already in the game.
Yes.
Because I'm someone who fondly remembers Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, where you're like, you start off by deciding you're a boatman, and then from there you work out how you got from that to being a fighter, or But so we get things like, there's only one page of them, so it's not loads. The Archaeologist, which seems good. You get the Pathfinder Recruiter. This is my favorite one of it. So the Pathfinder Recruiter is somebody who goes around on behalf of the Pathfinder Society recruiting people to join the organization. And I think if you're looking for one that spurs a lot of ongoing plot, that's a really fun one. Obviously, you'd have to be a member of the Pathfinder Society. You'd expect that from most of the options that are in here. That's the kind of character you're trying to make.
Yeah, it's literally the book.
Exactly. But I quite like, in an ongoing campaign, if one of your character's things is that they're constantly looking for people to join the society, and you meet an interesting NPC, or you rescue somebody from a dungeon, and then maybe your character talks to them afterwards and gets them to join the society, and then maybe when you come back to this town later on, you've got some allies who've joined your faction because you've kind of recruited them. I just really like that. I think that's the sort of hook that I could really get into as a character, as just a thing you do all the time when when you complete quests.
Yeah, yeah,
um
and get them
you've got
killed.
Yeah. And then the others are kind of they're all about exploration, the kind of stuff that you want. You got a spell seeker who is really good at learning magic, a very good background if you just want to make any kind of wizard. Actually, if the existing kind of wizardy backgrounds don't suit you and you want one that's more focused on research and somebody who wants to amass weird spells, this one fits to that quite nicely. And then the trailblazer is an explorer, and the translator who gets a load of extra languages, which again, quite flavorful if that's the kind of one you want to make. So they're nice backgrounds. I'm a real fan of those. I like those.
A question.
Yes.
Are these classes designed in any way to operate together? So we're talking about a party of, an archaeologist and a linguist and a thingamabob and a thingamabob. Is that something you could do with these characters?
You certainly could. Bearing in mind that there are already some Pathfinder related backgrounds. There's a Pathfinder recruit, I think, which is I think it's in the World Guide, and there's a Pathfinder archetype in the World Guide, and some more in the character guide, and there's stuff in here that will build on those as well and really flesh those out. For these backgrounds, they could go together quite nicely. Like if you wanted to make a group of Pathfinders, and I'll talk about this a bit more when we get into the stuff about how the Pathfinder Society works, because I think there's some real seeds of an interesting adventure in that. But yeah, these could synergize really nicely. But I also like that, other than maybe the Pathfinder Recruiter, all of them are completely usable for other things. And even the Pathfinder Recruiter, you can just change the word Pathfinder, and maybe you work on a ship and you're a press ganger if you're playing a second edition version of Skull and Shackles, or anything like that fits. That's the nice thing about backgrounds. Then you can change them up as much as you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Greg already came on and said right back at the beginning, they are balanced very well, so you can play any concept you want without feeling shortchanged. Which I think, you pretty much summed up. That sounds really good. Okay, so moving on past these new classes.
Past that, you get a nice big history, as you would expect. You get a history of the Pathfinder Society, which is, you can find out about how it was formed in a pub by basically an adventuring party who were just like, oh, it'd be good if there was a bit more support for this, wouldn't it? If we had a bit more organization, and then how it grows from that, and the various things it's been through, stuff that if you've played PFS, you'll be very familiar with the history of the Pathfinders and the various betrayals and attacks on the lodge. And they're ruled by a really shady group called the Decemvirate, who are 10 people in masks, who kind of guide the society. But it's a really sketchy group to be running what is essentially meant to be a benevolent adventurous society. And I think a lot of this comes from trying to add layers to it, but also the fact that because of the way PFS adventures are written, the leaders of the Pathfinder Society always do come off as a little bit shady, because you're doing like a 2 or 3 hour adventure. So you tend to just walk in, someone's like, go here, do this, don't ask questions. And everyone ends up slightly mistrusting the venture captains and the people giving them quests. Yeah. So it's nice that sort of rolled in.
Well, I think that because they're always so nebulous about their objectives as well. You're never privy to what they want, which is quite a rare thing in role-playing games. Normally, people, at least, even if it's a lie, give you we need to find the Stone of Arathorn so we can plug the warp gate of this and that. And you're like, okay, right, fine. You might be talking rubbish, but that's fine. As a Pathfinder's like, take this to this person. Why? Don't need to know. So, well, thanks. It's only I don't think adventurers are normally used to sort of an adventure party being told that they're not privy to know. I think by the nature of playing role-playing games, you sort of feel entitled to know everything.
And you don't you totally understand it in society games, because you don't have time to do that. You just have to do the quest.
Yeah.
The quest isn't to argue with this guy; it's to go and kill those goblins, because that's the game right now. And you just kind of, I like it when that gets rolled into the lore a little bit. There's a nice change up in the history section. I won't run through all of the history. Obviously, there's loads of stuff there if you want it. You can find out about how a lot of Pathfinders died fighting the Whispering Tyrant recently, how things of the whole society has changed recently because of it. But it's done a nice thing that a few of the Lost Omens books have done, where there is a mix of text that's written as sort of flavor text, like you'd expect from a book, which is just a disconnected voice saying this is the history of this organization in this fictional game that we're role playing, just a narrator who's not connected to it. But you also have some first person narration as well, and you have some clips, some things from the world. So you've got an essay written by a scholar of the Pathfinder Society that is used to explain a section of the society's history. Little bits like that, which I'm like, that's nice. It's just a nice way of changing stuff up.
It is nice, and I get actually a little insight into the past, for our very own past. We played a personal off-air game where we first actually encountered the Pathfinder Society, and we went and did a quest to... we sort of stopped a god from appearing in the middle of a mountain, and Dan did us a little... the Pathfinder Chronicles little sort of report from a newspaper with a picture, and I still have it framed upon my mantelpiece over there.
Oh, yes, I
So
forgot about that. It was great.
That
was so much fun. Yeah, I made a Pathfinder Chronicle, like explaining your adventure, because it was the one you did for the Pathfinder Society.
Yeah, it was really nice, and it wasn't the conclusion of the campaign. It was about halfway through, but we had been building up towards this big thing, and then the epic dungeon crawl. Worth doing that module, actually. It was really, really fun.
It was really good fun. It's not a module you can play because it was all homebrew. The Tomb of the Unborn King was my one experiment with dungeon design, when I designed a 4-level dungeon with an attached mystery. There were bits where you had to do translation of ancient texts, and like you had to compare words, and you had like lists of people that you had to work out whose name had changed, and I was really proud of it.
Well, do you think that could potentially be something that maybe our patrons could get hold of, a Tomb of the Unborn King? Because it was great. I'd forgotten it was homebrew. It was really, really nice.
I could certainly dig. I wouldn't want to promise because I don't know. It was a few years ago, but I've got bits of it somewhere.
Yeah. Amy thinks that sounds fantastic.
I'm sure there's something we could come up with.
You probably could do.
We probably have to commission new maps, because we haven't got the rights to the maps we used for it.
Well, exactly, no. And but the ideas were great. But moving on from committing you to various things like that, as an idea for your games, if you haven't already, little newspaper cuttings that your players can take away, they go down really, really well.
Yes.
We loved it, and as I said, I've kept one of mine because it still reminds me of that, and I can read the little summary story that the Pathfinder Chronicles did, and be like, oh yeah, that's right, yeah, it's got all the information. So yeah, as an idea for games, that's very nice.
Yeah, definitely. Handouts. Everyone loves handouts.
Do.
When we can meet people and hand things out to them again.
Exactly, and they can touch it. But that's nice that they've got essays and stuff in the book returning to the source materials. So that's just a bit of flavour, is it? And an idea of what...
Yeah, it's nice. It's just kind of, it's a nice way of telling the history of the society, if you want to know kind of the whole backstory of it. And it just breaks it up a bit because it's been told a lot before, the history. You can go on Pathfinder Wiki and read all of this. So it's nice that they've come up with a more original way of telling it.
Yeah.
We then get a section on life in the Pathfinder Society. So it tells you a little bit about what life is like for you if you are a Pathfinder, and how your training goes. It's interesting that if you're a Pathfinder, most people just... if you play Society, because anyone who plays Society, your character is a member of the Pathfinder Society. That's the conceit for the game. But most people just take the route of, I was an adventurer, I never really learned anything about it, and I just joined them, and I don't know it. And it's kind of what I do. I don't understand a lot about them. But if you want to really get into it,
it was like that or get drunk, so I thought I'd just join them.
But it kind of, technically, if you are in the Society, what you have probably done, your character has gone to Absalom and trained for 3 years. It's like doing a degree, and at the end of it, there is a quest. There's like a final exam, which is basically a quest that they go on to get. It's called the Confirmation, and you go on this quest, and that qualifies you as a Pathfinder agent, and then you get sent out around the world on missions, and you travel all over, and that then you have the life. And that suddenly I'm like, that's so much more interesting. Actually, I'm going to read how all of that works, and now anytime I play Society, that's what I'm going to do with my character, because it just gives you a little bit more grounding, and it stops that first level thing of you being just this kind of disembodied character who's just wandering around and doesn't really know where he connects to anything that's in the world, because you've got your backstory and the world is over here that the GM has created, and it takes a little while to kind of click them together and work it out. I quite like if you've just got like, yep, I'm completely immersed in this concept now. That seems really nice. I also think there's some seeds here for some very fun games. It seems weird to be talking about homebrew games about the Pathfinder Society, because there are hundreds of adventures about being in the Pathfinder Society. It's the main adventures that get published. But if you're looking for a hook, and when we talked about kind of those, could you take a group of those backgrounds and put them all together? You could make a whole homebrew campaign about a group of Pathfinder initiates going through their training, doing their confirmation together, going on this quest together, traveling around the world, going on quests. I think you would have a tremendous amount of fun with your friends as an open world adventure doing that.
I completely agree, and as always, our beloved Greg is a little bit ahead of you. Like it popped up there. There is a scenario, season 5, called The Confirmation. Now, of course, but what Dan's suggesting is a little bit broader, and you can have actually similar to what we were talking about a few weeks ago with the stuff where you start at the wizard school and you all grow up together, and then some of you become teachers. Similar idea where you sort of fresh-faced, and then you actually join the Pathfinder Society because maybe you have a formative experience together that makes you think, let's be Pathfinders, and then you go through your Pathfinder training, do the confirmation, and then off into the world. That could be a really exciting arc. That could be very, very good.
I think it'd be really fun. I think you're not going to get an AP doing it because, like you've just said, Strength of Thousands is telling that same story, and I think probably is going to do it in a slightly more. I think the Magambia is a more interesting lens to look through that sort of school type story than the Pathfinder Society. But because all of the adventures are already there, because you've got years worth of Society adventures for both first and second edition, you could build a campaign that would just last years. And if it's one that you're playing with you and your friends, where you just want that kind of classic D&D feel campaign, where you're just a group of friends who go on quests together, and they're not necessarily all massively connected, but they're that they have one thread running through them, that you're all part of the thing. And there are storylines that run through Pathfinder Society. It's a thing to remember, is that to play Pathfinder Society scenarios, you don't have to do it in an organized play sort of setting. You don't have to follow all of the quite strict character gen rules for it. You don't have to fill in chronicle sheets. You don't have to do all of that. You can just play them for fun with your mates. That's what we do on the show. We've played loads of Pathfinder Society modules and adventures across the various Lockdown Legends and specials, and even some of the main show stuff. We've used some of their bits. Yeah. And you can just they're perfectly good adventures. You can just play them as that. So I think there's a really fun campaign in there. I would love to hear of anyone running a game like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tweet us, Dangerlings.
Tweet us. Can I shout out some of the art that I really like?
Of course you can.
That's something that starts cropping up here. There's some nice art early on, but you start getting character art as you come through, and it's all very good. There's nothing that I have issues with, like we did with some of the Advanced Players Guide art. I think it's all good. It's not sort of Wayne Reynolds, but it's good.
Right. Okay.
And what I like about it is that there is some wonderful diversity in the art in this one, in the range of people that you see in the Pathfinder Society. Very early on, we have a character in a wheelchair. Later on, we've got a character who has an arm missing. Another thing that I really like, actually, that I'm always pleased to see in fantasy artwork, is non-Caucasian, non-human races. Yeah. So there tends to be this kind of this sort of thing that if you're human, you can be. Sorry, let me.
Daniel.
Unbelievable.
How could you have your phone on? Good Lord. I would never, ever have my phone on. You see this, I'm showing it up there. Well, it's on silent at least.
Wife, she knows I'm streaming as well. Well, if you're a £5 Patreon subscriber, then this is exactly the kind of content that you can hear from the audio version.
Tweet us, Dangerlings, but not during the live stream.
It's on silent now.
But you are quite correct. I mean, let's for instance say you don't find many sort of dwarves of colour or gnomes or people like this. They do tend to be Caucasian.
Exactly, and it's been getting better, noticeably in second edition.
Yes.
But as the sort of more varied writers and artists have been brought in, and there has been a real effort to do it. But yeah, it does tend to be kind of, if you're a human, you can be, you can be anything. You can be white, you can be Asian, you can be black, you can be Native American, you can be kind of any ethnicity beyond that. And then when you get to non-humans, it's kind of like, well, you're green, maybe you're purple, but basically, like if you're a halfling, you're all white.
Yeah.
And you don't really get into that. Whereas in this, you've just got, it's so effortless. That's the thing. It's just done. It's done without signposting. You'll just have a Middle Eastern halfling, and it's just like, it just makes it feel so normal, and feel bigger. It feels like this isn't a role-playing game set in Northern Europe. This is a role-playing game about an entire world, and I really like that. I think that's the kind of art that I want to see in a book.
I do, and I think it's a crucial. I mean, we've talked about it before, and I think a lot of people agree. I think it's a crucial aspect that's being addressed in the games, because seeing this artwork, it's not only an inspiration to potential players who are coming to this, but of course a lot of GMs are reading these books, really, not players. And if it's putting it in the mind of someone like yourself or someone else who's running a game, it's like, oh yeah, maybe I should suggest to Candice or whatever else, that she could actually play an elf or a halfling or something else as sort of ethnically diverse. It's great. That's really good. That's the change we need to see, and it's not being rammed down our throat. It's just like it's all of us have to change our mind about what we've been force fed. Really, fantasy since we were born. That's always been fantasy. Like dwarves are white and elves are white, and that's how it is, and it shouldn't be that case.
The things like the Mwangi Expanse book is fantastic and is going to do a lot for the kind of stories that we tell in this world. But that's not the thing that's going to provoke change in the way that people approach it. It's not the thing that's going to bring more people necessarily to the game. It's these small changes throughout the entire line, rather than it being tokenism, rather than it being. And I don't think the Mwangi ones are tokenism. They would be if this wasn't carried through all of the other books. It's having that. Because the reason you play a role-playing game, I think, is because you open it, you look through it, and you see something, you say, that's me. You see something, and something identifies with you, whether it's a class, whether it's a piece of art, whether it's some equipment. It's something that just clicks with you and just says, I relate to that.
Do you know what?
That is what the story I want to tell. And the more diversity you can have with that, the more people are going to want to be a part of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've mentioned Shadowrun recently, but when I was a wee small boy and it came out, and I was about 10, and I flicked through and it had a whole page dedicated in the original book to the different character classes, and just thought the Rigger looked wicked. I was like, that's me, carrying a keyboard, likes computers, plug it into his head, cool haircut, sort of Mohican haircut, it looked wicked. And actually, Chris makes the very good point that, of course, it's drawing in more diverse voices to creating content for these games. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Great point, which is great.
And any kind of gaming needs that. We need more diverse voices so we can tell different stories, because we're all getting pretty tired of going to the cave and killing the goblins. We want people with different life experiences who can show us new games, and we're already seeing that with some of the stuff that's coming out.
Yeah.
The next chapter is one I will probably skip through a little bit, and it's the one that I probably shouldn't skip through as someone who occasionally plays PFS, and that's the factions chapter. The Pathfinder Society is split into various different factions who all have their own agendas. They all work together, but they all have different. Some of them are about amassing knowledge. Some of them are about recruiting new people to the Pathfinder Society. Some are about defending against evil, and they're all sort of doing the same thing, but they do it in different ways. And when you play PFS, you on your sheet have to kind of mark down which of these factions you are supporting, and you earn points with them, and those points can be traded in for prizes, for like special boons and things that give you extra stuff. Special boons. And I don't really know. I've never really understood it, and I can tell you every PFS character that I've played has been a part of the Envoys Alliance, because it's the first one on the list alphabetically, and so I just tick that and then go and play the game. And I've never really read what any of them are for.
Dan.
Yeah, so this should be my homework. I'm incredibly good at doing research when I'm GMing, and very bad at doing it when I'm a player.
We know. Yes, I mean this came up last week and several times before. Interesting. I mean, so we won't delve too much into this, and that could be something exciting for people to check out in the book. Out of interest, do you know of any that are directly not noble, shall we say? So are there any like the sort of far right fascist conservatist element of the Pathfinder Society who want to keep it traditional and don't agree with this or some sort of contentious issue they might have?
Other people will be able to answer this better. They're a lot more cooperative now because there were a couple of big schisms within the society a long time ago. What sort of during the previous seasons of society play,
Right.
you had the Shadow Lodge, who sound really sinister, but they actually weren't sinister. They were a group who were about holding the Decemvirate to account. Basically, they said these they're kind of the more anarchic group, or they're about, you are here to serve us, not us to serve you. We're going to make our own sort of lodge within the lodge, who are going to keep an eye on everything, and that was sort of a big part of that. And then the leader of that did turn out to be a villain in the end, and there was fighting in it. But then recently, in second edition, the Whispering Tyrant has come back, and the Pathfinder Society were instrumental in comeback. That was the finale game of that season of Society play, and loads of them died. Like a huge section of the Pathfinder Society died in that battle. So there aren't as many Pathfinders left now. They're kind of rebuilding. So everyone's sort of working together a little bit more. But you definitely have sort of differing opinions on stuff. So I am going to go through and read some of this. The nice thing is you get some faction specific gear, little bits and bobs, like a body recovery kit, say, or a writ of authenticity, just little bits of equipment that are specific to your faction that can just mark you out a little bit more. So if you want to carry over that individuality that you had in Pathfinder Society into a normal game, then there's stuff in here that can help you do that. And there's NPCs tied to all of them. You can find out some of those, and there's some good art.
And I'd hope there's a little bit of organic nature to it as well. If you're playing a society game and you firmly believe in the faction that you support, and that will change the Pathfinder Society for the better. Maybe, if you do a good enough job, that will influence how the Pathfinders turn out. So that's quite nice.
There's a pen that you can stab people with as well. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. So should we move on to the next section? Because I'm just aware that time is ticking.
We are rocketing through. So that's kind of why I didn't want to spend a lot of time. There's loads of good stuff in there. I'm going to read it later. I will. But you get a load of Pathfinder agent.
Should we test you next week? I think next week's Dangerous Wednesday, we're going to have a little quiz about the Pathfinder Society factions.
Fine. All right. That means you'll have to read it as well to be able to set the quiz.
It's all right. Yeah, I can do that. If it gives the chance of putting you on the spot, I'll do that. So what do we move on to after that?
All right. So we get your favorite section of any book. You get a section of feats. This does is it fleshes out the Pathfinder agent that was in Lost Omens World Guide. And then there are some others that flesh out some of the other archetypes from the character guide. So these ones gave you a few different character options. This gives you a whole lot more, which really brings them up to speed with some of the ones from the Advanced Player's Guide. So now, if you really want to play a character who is completely focused on being a Pathfinder, and you don't want to take a lot of, say, rogue feats or whatever your class feats are, you can now really spend most of your feat choices on Pathfinder specific stuff, and you will you'll find some nice things in there. You got sort of things that you can recall knowledge on ones. There was one that I really liked that's really powerful. 6th level feat, Archaeologist's Warning. You are about to, so this is a free action that triggers when you're about to roll initiative. You shout out a warning. Your entire party get +1 to their initiative.
Wow,
that's a really nice feat, and that's one of those ones that's like, that's a reason to take this archetype.
Well, yes.
That's genuinely quite powerful.
And actually, it's nice to see that they are addressing the problem with the amusement that's come up a few times in the podcast about, sort of swift actions or surprise rounds. So basically, as a player, if I shout it quickly enough before you say roll for initiative, then something will happen because we've seen this coming, or our particular player has seen this coming, and you want to reflect that in what happens and goes down. But at the moment, apart from shouting it quickly before the DM says roll for initiative, there's not, which never has an effect. That's not really much you can do. So that's really nice to see a feat that you can actually be like, no, because my player's on it, like, my character's on it. They shout a warning.
Yeah, there are Starfinder ones like that as well, and I like that thing you just do at the start of every combat that gives everyone a little bonus because your person's always a little bit more alert.
Yeah.
Short of kind of pumping your wisdom up, which is a bit hard to do. I really like that. I think it's a nice one.
Question from Greg. So does this book give you more Indiana Jones options? Sounds like it.
It does, yeah. If you want to build your Indiana Jones, this is something that's going to really help you do it. I mean, it's always been the Pathfinder thing anyway, but you can definitely have this. And I think with some of it's a toss-up as to whether it's better than some of the archetypes in the Advanced Player's Guide for that. But I think they really are. With the extra kit that you get and the extra flavor that you get from being in the the Advanced Society, that I think there's some really nice stuff in there.
Okay, so moving on.
There's extra stuff for for a couple of the other books, for the character guide, Pathfinder stuff. More things in there that you can have. There's a spell I quite like called Familiar Form, where you turn into an identical version of your familiar, or you turn into a familiar. So I was like, I quite like that. So Velda could turn into a fox.
That could be quite useful for an escape because they're very, very nimble and fast. So you could both turn into foxes and then just bugger off. That sounds like an exit strategy more than anything. So if like a bat or a fox or something nimble, you could just be like, let's both turn into bats and just fly away.
Yes. So something that there's a whole section on the Decemvirate, if you want to know more about them, but there's something in there that hasn't really been shared before, which a few people have really. I know Nostrix was really pleased about this. You get really nice artwork of all of the Decemvirate masks, all of the 9 masks of the Decemvirate, because one of them doesn't wear a mask of the 10. But yeah, you can see really the real detail of those masks, and that's great. That's not something we've really seen before. That's really lovely. I really like that. And then what do we get at the end? This is my favorite chapter. I've left it right to the end, haven't we? There's a whole chapter.
Okay. We've still got a bit of time.
We can be good. We got this. So there's a whole section on Pathfinder lodges, and this is something that I really like. So the Grand Lodges in Absalom, and then what the Pathfinders do is that they set up lodges in other countries, which are sort of safe havens for explorers and adventurers and Pathfinder agents who want to just stop there, find out what the local news is, pick up quests, have a rest,
get subsidized drinks.
Exactly. It's your base of operations when you're in a particular country if you're a Pathfinder, and they're all run by venture captains. And you've been to some in the show. You went to the one in Nearmathas, I think, or what was left of it. So you saw some bits of this, but this gives you information on a few prominent lodges around Galarian, and some of them are really interesting. Firstly, you get a lot of stuff about the Grand Lodge. I'll send you a picture of it because I really don't think you guys appreciated how huge that place was when you were talking about talking it down. I'm not saying anything when you went there.
Oh no, that wasn't a spoiler, but I think we generally don't. The architectural details generally pass us by, but
if I could give you any kind of like visual reference for it based on the art in here, it's Castle Grayskull.
Castle Grayskull, okay. Yes, Amy's already saying la la la. Don't worry, there's no spoilers coming. But because the thing is, as you probably gathered from this, if you don't know much about the Pathfinder Society, they tend to be involved with pretty much every game that goes, because at some point an adventuring party will go and be like, hello, have you got some information? So it gives nothing away. So it looks like Castle Grayskull.
It does. So my favourite one is a brand new lodge which has been brought in for this, and this is called the Exalted Lodge. The Exalted Lodge is the Pathfinder Society's lodge in Razmaran.
Oh, Razmaran.
Almost makes me want to not tell you about it because I really want to use it somewhere.
Well, don't tell us about it then. That's fine.
But I'll give you a bit of an overview. So the Pathfinder Society basically now has a foothold in Razmaran, and it's a Razmiri priest who got in touch with the society and was like, I would like to set up I'd like to set up a lodge for you here in Rasmussen so you can come and be part of it. And the lodge was like, okay, but you're not allowed to use slaves. You have to pay everyone. You have to not be evil, and you have to allow people from other faiths to come in there. And the guy's like, yeah, I think we can manage that. And so it's kind of swung it so that there's this little Pathfinder enclave in here. The guy who runs it, the venture captain, is still a priest of Rasmussen, of Rasmir. So he and it's all attended by priests of Rasmir. So there are loads of them around there. So you can go there and you can pick up quests and you can rest. It's even got a chapel where it's got a lovely detail. It's got a chapel where anyone from any faith can go and pray, but it's attended by a priest of Rasmir. So you can go and pray, but there's another priest just staring at you the whole time.
It's quite nice. It's sort of like like a modern embassy, really. A sort of like a diplomatic free zone.
And it's kind of like they say anyone who goes there should expect people to sort of try and convert them, although kind of strong arming is forbidden in it, but they will engage them in debate. So it's like, it's like I used to run tech for my mate who ran the Christian Performing Arts group at my university, and so I'd go along to church events and run tech for them, and you'd have the people there the whole time be like, so you're gonna come back, you're gonna come to church, right? And I'm like, I'm just here to press the buttons. And it's a little bit like that, but you've got there's just lovely details about this venture captain who, I can't remember what his name is, venture captain Narsen, who is sort of has set this thing up and is just running this delicate balance between the Pathfinders and between bits of elements of Rasmussen that consider him a heretic and want his whole project shut down, and he's involving everyone in debate and his interest in it. But is he scheming as well? And the whole thing is just fascinating. I love it. Yeah. And my Pathfinder Society character at the moment is a priest of Rasmir, so that's Ron Dwarferson. So now Ron Dwarferson has a home.
This might make a bit more sense then. By the way, by Rogvergerg, by Greg, by Steph, who are going off to, and maybe Amy, I'm not sure. She said see you all, but she might have been saying goodbye to Amy and Greg, who've Steph and Greg have noped off. But Chris said, so Dan's dwarf from our Gen Con game is actually legit.
Yeah, everyone was so scared when he walked in. Yay. So yeah, Ron Dwarferson.
Amy's still here. It's all right.
And he can take Sir Ron Ray Dwarferson, his brother, played by Chris, off to Rasmussen, and they can go and have a very nice trip together.
Splendid.
That'll be, but that one's my favorite. And then you've got a lot of other ones. You've got one from Katapesh. There's one from Nex. There's one that's a pirate ship. That's my favorite one, the Grinning Pixie, it's a Pathfinder lodge, but it's also a pirate ship that just sails the seas.
As much as I want to see Dan go through his list of his favorite Pathfinder lodges, because they're all his favorite, really. Have you noticed this? Like a kid at Christmas. We are slightly over time, so moving ahead. What is that the end of the book?
Let's that's kind of the last really exciting bit. Then you get a load of kit, lots of bits and pieces that are stuff that is interesting and flavorful, and items that you will be familiar with if you have been a part of if you've played a lot of Society, you'll find sort of versions or bits of kit like that. Loads of Wayfarers. There are some familiars that I want to shout out because you get some there are some new familiars that you can get, and some of them are really fun. There's a familiar bag. So if you're ever worried that if you've ever got a mean GM that targets familiars and doesn't just say, oh, it's in your robes, it can't target it. If you ever have a GM that's like, no, it has to be on the board and I can shoot it, you can now get a carry case for your familiar. There's fire holes in it, and you can just keep it in there and it's safe. So they can't target it. There's also there's a thing called a poppet. Right. There's a poppet is a constructive familiar. It's really low level. It's unbelievably easy to get. Anyone can have it. It's made of straw. You get a little straw person that wanders around following you about, but it has the disadvantage that it is highly flammable.
Yes, so exactly.
If you want a familiar that will die constantly and you will have to keep remaking every day, get a poppet because they're adorable. You can also get a purple cat that can talk. That's pretty cool.
Oh my god, that sounds
I
amazing.
like the sound of that.
Yeah, Amy does like the Amy likes the sound of the pop. It does sound cute, doesn't it?
So cute. The art
How's
is
your pop it?
incredible. Like, give it a couple of days for this book to come out, and then the artwork, I'm sure, will be on Google. Look up the Poppet, and it's just, oh, it's like a tiny little Inuit with a little staff, and it's made of straw. It's just lovely.
Tremendous.
It's great, and that's kind of then you got your glossary of terms. That's kind of your book. So
Okay.
that's an overview of everything you're going to get in there.
So that was an overview. So we got everything in there. I think we've touched on a few things that you really liked about the book. You've obviously highlighted things you like. Now to the sort of other side of the sandwich. Was there anything you could have thought could have been done better? Anything a bit light? What didn't you like about the book?
I don't know if it's necessarily a criticism, but it's something.
No. But something that
It's that one of the big things in this book is that it gives you a lot of expanded rules for some of the archetypes that are from the Lost Omens World Guide and the Lost Omens Character Guide.
Right.
And that's really good if you want to go through these books and make your Pathfinder character. And it gives you a lot of things across that. But that is 3 books that you need to own now to have the full character experience of playing a Pathfinder.
Right.
And it's partly from wanting to get some of that stuff in early in the World Guide, and then get a bit more in the Character Guide when they could flesh it out a bit more. And that's kind of the weird book that's not connected to anything. And now this is where it's all done. And there's a little bit of me that's kind of like, could you not have reprinted some of that stuff in this book? I know that's taking up pages that could be taken up with new stuff, but it's like, if you're someone who really wants to play a Pathfinder and you pick up this book expecting you can play the Pathfinder archetype, and then you find out that the actual starting archetype is in a different book, that's a bit of that's tough.
Is a bit of a kicker, isn't it? Because this is the Pathfinder book.
Yeah.
So you think that at least they would have done that? Okay, so that is a bit of a kicker.
Yeah, I would say, and there are certainly ways around it. Like,
yes,
all of this stuff is going to be on Archives of Nethys. You don't, as with anything, if you want the flavor, buy this book to read all of the lore and learn about the Pathfinders, and then you go on Archives of Nethys to get the bits of your archetype you need to flesh out the character. But be aware of that. That's something to be, you don't necessarily have the entry way on there. And I'd say that's maybe a criticism of it. And if you're someone who wants tons of rules, again, it's a Lost Omens book. You're going to get more lore than you are thing. Other people who know more about the history of the Pathfinders would be able to say more than I can about how much of the lore in this book is new, because obviously there's been a lot written about the Pathfinders. But then generally, I would say it's unlikely to be an issue with that, because all of the second edition stuff, they've added something new. It's all been about evolving the story rather than just reprinting the story or completely changing it. So I think you'll find new and interesting stuff in here.
Yes, I mean that's certainly something. On the flip side of what we've just discussed, there's never a reprint. It's never something like, oh, but you've already told me all about this. There's a whole chapter to something. No. It's all going to be new stuff. It does sound good. I mean, so given that balance, would you recommend this book? And who would you recommend this book to?
I would recommend this book to quite specific people. I would recommend this book for anyone who wants to get really into Pathfinder Society, because I do think you get more out of playing organized play if you embrace the Pathfinder Society idea.
Now, actually, I'm just going to put, we should have done this earlier, but for those of you who don't know, Pathfinder Society games tend to be sort of larger groups of multiple adventuring parties, all sort of playing a larger story. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so it's they're adventures that are designed to be played with strangers, basically. So there are fewer character options to prevent sort of weird builds, and the idea is you play with an accredited GM who knows the adventure and who will run you through it, but you might not know any of the other people at your gaming table. You might have just gone to a convention or gone to your local gaming store or picked up a group on Roll20 and just played a game together. And the idea is that you can have an experience doing that. So they're slightly simpler, and they're not necessarily all connected, although there are storylines that run through the various Society adventures. So
Okay.
that's the idea of Society. But the premise of it, is that you are all members of the Pathfinder Society.
So
So I
you,
think you'll get more from it with this, assuming all of these character options are going to become Society legal, because that becomes weird if they aren't. Hopefully they've thought that through.
yeah, that would be a double kicker, wouldn't it? It's like, so I've used your new archetype. Yeah, that's not legal. So, but you did it. I'm sure they will have. I'm sure they'll do that.
And if you want to play our brilliant idea of a campaign of playing your own adventure path about playing Pathfinder Society members, I'm sure you will get a lot from this as well. If you're a GM, there is stuff in here that you will like. If you have the money to pick it up, I wouldn't say it's an essential, not in the same way that the Lost Omens World Guide and even Lost Omens Legends are. I think you get a lot more lore from those, but that chapter on the lodges is really good. There's really nice stuff in there that really fleshes the world out, and it's part of what some of these Lost Omens books have been doing, which has been, rather than giving us something like the Inner Sea World Guide in first edition, which is just an encyclopedia about the world, it's giving us a look at bits of the world through different lenses. So you're getting to see them through the people that live there, or through the Pathfinder lodges that are based there.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting way of learning about the world. So if you can, it's worth it for that chapter.
Yeah, and I think as a practical takeaway, of course, that's the part that's probably going to turn up in people's games. So it's just like if you're setting your adventure in, Nex or wherever it's like that, you can throw into your game and describe this wonderful lodge that they come to. And that's going to be a nice sort of figure piece for any kind of little adventure path, rather than just like, it's a 4-story house that kind of looks a bit Tudory. You know, it could be like, no, it's carved out of the cliff and it's got all this weird stuff and da-da-da. I think that's pretty cool.
It's one less tavern name that you have to come up with when your players go to a new town.
Great. I'm great with tavern names. Well, there we go. So that was a summary and a general recommendation for the what was it called?
It is Lost Omens Pathfinder Society. I would say, a qualified recommendation. If you're the sort of person who wants this book, you already know you want this book, and you'll be happy with it.
Good stuff. Now, as has been rightly pointed out by our lovely Amy, there has been no Matt today. So leggings check.
What? All right.
So Amy's stepping in as a step-in turnip. Whoa!
We are full-on crotch shot there.
Ready? We got a full-on crotch shot, and we are ready for an undersea adventure. That was
a very fine aqua green, and it kind of. Yes,
good heavens. Candice is regretting getting married already. Literally the first day of her marriage, and she gets a full-on spangly crotch shot.
I disappear into the background if I do it.
So yes, Amy thinks they're fabulous and so green, says Candice. So thank you so much for joining us for Dangerous Wednesdays. We have overrun a little bit, but I think it's important to get the full, impression of the book. We have also mentioned Archives of Nethys. If you've not used that, or if you're about to start venturing with Pathfinder, really, really useful. An online resource. It's totally free, and it divides things up really nicely. And you can change the system as well. We use it for Starfinder. We use it for Pathfinder 2e, even first edition if you want to. So check that out. It's I think it's probably the best sort of free resource that Pathfinder's got.
It's the official one as well. Yeah, and it is. It's tremendous. It's a really, really good thing. They get stuff out so quickly as well. So quick, and you can just click on. The thing is, with the books, it can get a bit lost. That's not a criticism of Pathfinder. Every system has that. You've got to thumb through the big book. Whereas with Archive of Nethys, hot links. That's right. You click on that, it takes you to the next bit, to the next bit, to the next bit. It's brilliant. And Chris, I think we're going to leave with Chris's comment, which is Dan Thompson, the full package. I couldn't have said it better myself. So this has been Dangerous Wednesdays. I think we're going to sort of say goodbye on that note. So a goodbye from Dan, the full package. Thank you so much, everyone. We have all of the other, we've got all the other October releases as review copies. So if there's anything else you want us to review, if you want us to talk about any of the other new books, get on the Discord, let us know. Absolutely. And we'll do another Dangerous Wednesdays on. Thank you, everyone. Yes, do. And do, if you've got any questions or something like that, tap us in. And and of course, myself, James Foxy Lockhart, your host, we're all going to go and buy some poppets now. And we'll leave you to whatever it is you do. But hopefully we'll see you very, very soon. And stay dangerous. Bye.